So apparently the Eagles have a solid amount of cap room left, as Howie Roseman continues to work his accounting magic, while Kenny Pickett addressed the elephant in the room, and more Devin White breakdown with his contract details being released. Unfortunately, the Birds just decided Haason Reddick's fate, plus the reason Philly and Justin Simmons are closer to a deal being done. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? Hope you're doing well and that you had a fantastic weekend. The Eagles have been busy and continue to stay busy. But let's start with the most recent picks of the new Birds with their uniforms, with Saquon sticking with the 2-6, and CD Deuce deciding to go all Mamba mode and taking Kenny Pickett's number 8. Who am I kidding? He deserves it way more than KP. Oh yeah, I referenced this on an earlier video, but it's now official for who the new Agent Zero will be in Bryce Huff. And ain't no doubt in my mind, these dudes are gonna make a serious impact. I mean, for real, at this point, Howie Roseman deserves a standing ovation for the moves he's been able to pull off. While apparently, according to Spot Track, still having Philly with the 4th most cap space among teams in the NFL. In all seriousness, while the Saquon signing has been figured into those numbers, there's more than a couple that haven't, so don't get carried away thinking we can go on a spending spree.
Hello? Congratulations! You maxed out another credit card!
Sure, Howie likes the whole kick the can down the road approach. However, just because he spent now, don't think that means that he's mortgaged the future just to win now. Although the Ringer somewhat disagrees, citing it as a boom or bust approach, where Barkley and the new Philly offense proved to be too much for teams while Fangio's able to maximize the defense and the Eagles win the NFC. Or we find that there's still too many cooks in the kitchen, with confusion and frustration popping up everywhere, eventually leading to Sirianni getting fired before Bill Belichick or Ben Johnson take over as the new head coach. Yeah, let's not get carried away. Look, I love the move so far, but I think we all know what happens when expectations are too high for a squad. No, I don't think I need to go down that route of dream team and what happened there. Heck, last season was proof of how quickly things can change. But as long as these dudes are hungry and not complacent, we're going to be fine. Which is exactly where Devin White is, saying despite these bumps, he's ready to get back in the driver's seat and resurrect his career. And even though I disagree with the 33rd team's worst free agency move so far list, with Devin White being there at number 5, let people keep hating, because he's just going to prove them wrong. Plus, for the doubters out there anyway, how can you hate on Howie getting Devin White on a 1-year deal with a base value of $4 million with $3.5 million guaranteed? Like I've said before, I get that he's declined, but this is a dude who previously wanted 18 to 20 million per year, and now you have him for 4. Now, obviously, there's pros and cons to everyone's game. As Johnny Page shared, White's got a ton of potential, and it's easy to see why coaches like him for the weapon he is on the field, with an elite burst over 5 yards that not very many linebackers have, and also that the Eagles must have liked his ability in coverage, with that specifically being in zone coverage. Plus, although he's not been a solid run defender, he does show the ability, if he can be kept clean, to bring down the ball carrier. However, on the flip side, as Johnny shared, White is pretty awful at getting off contact in the run game. Like, for example, he seems to just accept that he's going to be beaten by pulling guards at times, or doesn't show the fight you'd want to see from your starting linebacker. Oh yeah, and then this one particular rep Page shared of Kittle very easily moving him out of the way isn't that great. Again, White's not perfect, but he's better than the options we had last season, plus, like I kind of alluded to, he's really trying to prove a point and get a massive contract. Yet while we're talking about last season's linebackers, Anthony DeBona brought up a good point that seeing the Eagles need some depth, Zach Cunningham is likely the best off-ball linebacker remaining in free agency. And given the fact that Howie has voiced his vote of confidence, as well as Bobby King, the new linebackers coach, having coached Cunningham at multiple stops, plus Oren Burks, who was Cunningham's teammate in Vanderbilt, being signed recently, it'd make a lot of sense for him to return and provide some depth. After all, Zach got a poor first experience of Philly.
It smells like mushrooms and everyone looks like they want to hurt me.
Look, personally, I'd be fine bringing back Cunningham as a backup because he's at least serviceable and he'd be with a proven defensive coordinator this time. Although one guy who is a little more used to Philly is Kenny Pickett, with him sharing what it means now to be an Eagle.
It's pretty unbelievable, honestly. McNabb, Westbrook, Dawkins, Selleck, Trotter, Curse coming up, those were my guys. So I know vivid memories of them running out of the tunnel. Now that I'll be doing that same trot. I've been coming to games at the Lynx since I was like 5 years old. You know, I have great memories of my dad taking me here, my grandfather, all my family members coming out to the games, you know, together and just having great memories. You know, hopefully, you know, I can help provide some great memories for some other families now coming up. It's pretty surreal and a full circle moment for me.
Love the memories, I'm all for the good time, but hopefully the only memories KP's providing the public is at the public practice this summer. But yes, it's good to have a backup just in case, and in all fairness, the 25-year-old said he's talked to Jalen and the rest of the QB room, while also sharing more about the excitement of this move.
I just think it's a good reset. I think, you know, getting a chance to play on this team in that quarterback room with a couple of great guys, you know, helping those guys out any way I can and just be ready if my number's called somewhere down the road. It's a crazy, crazy league, crazy business. Just trying to put my best foot forward and be an asset for this team.
Although Rashad Penny didn't work out the way many of us thought, it did remind me of the running back's presser.
I think this is it's going to refresh my career for sure. Being here and just being an Eagle, I think this is a great opportunity for me.
Seriously, if we see Pickett as much as we saw Penny, that's a good thing. But enough making fun, we got our backup, and everyone knows how valuable that can be. No one more than Howie, who's had his eye on Kenny for quite some time.
Talking with Howie, I think he said it was the first college game he was at in 3 years or something, that Thursday night game. We played North Carolina, at Heinz Field. So, great memory that I had at Pitt. Really cool that, he was in attendance for that game and made it a point to be there. After not previously going to a lot of games. So, I knew that there was definitely interest from back, in my Pitt days.
Okay, cool. And again, not really a shock that they were interested in Pickett. However, let's also remember that he's kind of the third choice if you're believing reports. First off, with Rob Maaddi saying the Birds offered Joe Flacco before he decided to go to Indy with Shane Steichen. And then a later report sharing how he called about Justin Fields to inquire what the price may be in Chicago, but ultimately that didn't amount to anything, so he went the route of Pickett. Of course, you're well aware by now that Fields ended up going to Pittsburgh for a conditional 6th-round pick. And we can debate whether or not Fields or Pickett was the best choice, yet apparently Howie went after the Chicago QB first.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Unfortunately, they did decline that offer. Or at least if you're buying the rumor that Chicago had better offers from other teams, one of them with a solidified starting QB, but decided to take the lesser Steelers offer instead. Apparently, wanting to do right by Fields and allowing him to choose where he went.
That doesn't make sense.
Think about it. Do you really think that if the Bears had a better offer for their former first-round pick that they wouldn't have taken that? No, they would have accepted the best offer. All they're trying to do is save face for how little they were able to get back for Justin Fields and, look like the good guys because, hey, go choose where you want to go instead of, guess what? You failed. The guy that wanted to be the face of your franchise or the one that you wanted to be did not turn out that way. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, or what am I not considering? Speaking of considerations, Howie Roseman is still keeping an eye on Justin Simmons, with NFL Network's James Palmer having said there was interest in the Broncos' former safety. But with the initial target price being too high for a couple teams, the Birds have been waiting for a reduced number. However, it's obviously a great sign that it's taking so long since the All-Pro is reportedly being very selective with where he goes. And it's kind of a no-brainer to say this, but the longer that drags on, his negotiating power decreases. Now, I don't blame him for trying to maximize his contract, yet Philly without question's gotta be on his list of top choices. With him saying just a couple months ago that he owes a lot of his success to Vic Fangio for teaching him the game, particularly one that plays to his strengths. Plus, his former DB coach in Christian Parker is in Philly too. I mean, it feels like he would have gotten a multi-year deal already if he was going to, or at least a bigger one. So, much like the other signings, this could be a chance for Simmons to go out there, have a great season with a team that will 100% play several nationally televised games, and then try to get a better contract next season. Oh yeah, just in case you're wondering, one of those nationally televised games will be Week 1 in Brazil versus the Cleveland Browns.
I mean, we're playing in Brazil this year, so, we could do a
Rio?
trip. Yeah, just a little Rio trip out there.
Oops, don't think they wanted that out there yet. But back to Simmons, I get it. He'll be 31 in a year, and then at that point, it's harder to get another contract, or at least a bigger one in that way. It's just that, unfortunately, this season, the safety market got the shaft like the running back one last season. Although it's not just in Simmons' benefit to sign with Philly, and we all know that. I mean, for real, Fangio's former safety is the missing link on this Eagles defense. Because C.J. Gardner-Johnson can be one of the safeties while also being utilized in the slot at times based on his versatility. But by having Simmons as the other one, you don't put pressure on Sidney Brown to get back and have to produce immediately. And it gives you great depth with Reed Blankenship as a backup. Yes, I know, we're not set at linebacker or cornerback, but I'm kind of already chalking those up as guys to get in the draft. Sure, Simmons would be different than the getting younger approach on defense, in particular what Howie's been doing most of free agency, but I'm sorry. To me, Simmons is that difference maker, and you have to add him to this defense. If you're being serious, you have the cap space, you can spend, you can backload it if you need to for contracts, but he is the difference maker. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. Now, one area that we lost was the offensive line. After Jack Driscoll signed with the Miami Dolphins, but after being fairly serviceable as a backup, the Birds are moving on and likely going with Tyler Steen to fill in as the hybrid guard/tackle. So ultimately, not a huge loss in my mind considering the options you have, plus the incredibly strong likelihood that Howie adds a solid right guard in the draft, which I talked about and got Pro Football Network Anthony DeBona's thoughts on in the latest video. However, this next part I hate to even say, but it appears the Eagles have made their decision with Haason Reddick. After ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported that Philly is moving Haas's $1 million roster bonus, which was originally due March 15th, to April 1st. which in theory buys them time to make a potential trade before having to pay the money. Now, I get being in denial, but Reddick also would have had to be willing to agree to this move before they did it. So it kind of suggests both sides are leaning toward the idea of a trade. And yeah, I hate that just as much as you, but at the same time, I think it just goes to show that Haas understandably wasn't willing to come down to whatever Howie's number was. So now they'll look to find a deal that works out for both sides. Again, not my preferred option or really anyone's, but at least you'll most likely get some draft compensation that you can maximize the return in April. I know that doesn't help, I'm just trying to be optimistic. And you still have Josh Sweat, along with the Bryce Huff edition for your starters with a couple other rotational options. But yeah, feel free to vent about it, let me know how you're doing, and I'll also be live tomorrow night if you want to hang out and just talk about it then. Speaking of the draft, gonna have mock drafts starting next week as well as a couple other editions, so stay tuned. This has been the Philly Special.